And everybody can probably turn on the microphones.
Good morning and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for October the 12th of 2022. Declare the meeting will now come to order. A notice for all those in attendance, this meeting will be live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Please note that the recording will be linked to the municipality's website following the meeting. First, to introduce the committee. This morning, we have Mr. Jerry Walker, Mr. David Bishop, and myself, John Smith, soon to be retired councillor for Ward 4. Mr. Don Popple, who normally chairs these meetings, is absent this morning due to an illness, and as a result, I've been asked to chair the meeting, but I need to make that official. So if I could get a mover and a seconder, I've got a motion here. It says be resolved that John Smith be appointed to chair the October 12th meeting.
I so move.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jerry. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. As I said, this is a public meeting, and we're here today to consider 3 applications for minor variance to the municipality's zoning bylaw. It is the committee's responsibility to consider all of the information received to date regarding the requested variances and to hear and consider any comments and questions that may be provided. Any variances granted by the committee must meet 4 tests, which are defined in the Planning Act. The requested variances must be minor in nature. They must be desirable for the greater proper development of the land. They must comply with the general intent of the official plan, and they must comply with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Please note that if anyone wishes to be notified of decision, please make a request in writing to the municipality. Does any committee member wish to declare a conflict on any of the 3 items before us today?
Not I, thank you. No.
Okay, thank you. Seeing none. This is a public meeting and there is public participation. I would note that any oral or written submissions received in advance of the meeting will verbally be read aloud at the time the application is to be considered. Information regarding live streaming of the meeting is available on the Municipal Diet website. All persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposals. Please direct all questions and comments to the chair. Each registered person will have up to 5 minutes to provide comments or ask questions. Once finished speaking, the meeting host will mute their microphone. I'll give you a little signal if you're approaching the 5-minute point, but we'll try and keep to that limit. Please state your name in relation to the application prior to speaking or making any comments. Just before we get into the 3 applications for today, we have the minutes from our most recent meeting of August the 10th, 2022. And I've got a resolution here that be it resolved the minutes from the Committee of Adjustment meeting of August 10th, 2022 be adopted. Can I have a mover, Gary? Second by David. Thank you. All in favor? Gary, perfect. Thank you very much. Now, as I said, we have 3 applications this morning. The first one on the agenda is for the lands of Culp. Mr. Jeff Isles, who is serving as our Secretary Treasurer this morning, has advised me that they wish to comment on this file before it proceeds. Jeff, you have some staff comments with regard to the file?
Well, typically the applicant would submit their proposal to the committee today, but the applicant is not in attendance. So what I can do is try and quickly summarize their request for you.
Okay, they're not, did they signal they wanted to attend?
My understanding is they wanted to attend.
Okay.
But I don't see them. They haven't registered.
Haven't registered. It's 11:05 and okay.
So the applicants, they wish to construct a 1,392 square foot dwelling, sunroom, deck, and entryway on their property. The original dwelling is 967 square feet. The increase in area brings the lot coverage from 13.4% to 18.4% lot coverage, which does not comply with the maximum requirement permitted by the bylaw, which is 15%. It should be noted that this calculation does not include the boathouse and the deck, as they are located on the shore road allowance, which the applicant presently does not own. Staff tried to do some calculations, but we are unable to accurately confirm exactly how much land area there is for the shore road allowance. But we did some estimations, and it looks like if they were to purchase the shore road allowance, it would bring their lot coverage to approximately 15% or near in compliance with the bylaw. So that's the rough proposal today. I'll keep an eye out for the attendee and or the applicant to see if they attend the meeting, but now I defer to the committee to see if they have any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Jeff on this?
Well, the indications was that the boathouse and the cottage were built in 1953. I don't know if there's been any improvements into those items after 1977, but we don't have any indication, is that correct? That there's been any improvements done to it?
There's no record of building permits
At all?
for the boathouse at all. The dwelling, there's no record of the original permit. However, it was first assessed in 1953. There is a new permit issued for the dwelling for 2022.
The other question I would have, they've submitted some drawings as to where the location of the existing buildings are and where they say that the final building will be located. And those drawings are showing distances from quote high water mark. And I'm just wondering how they arrived at those particular measurements and how accurately they would be there. Since we don't have any plan of survey of the actual shore road allowance or even the lot, I would like to make sure that those distances were properly measured. The question I have here, and there's alluding in the application to the shore road allowance closure, has there been an application by these owners for closure of the shore road allowance, or is that
We have no application.
no
to date.
application? The concern that I have in regard to the application for increase to 18, is 18.5?
18.4.
18.4 is that, you know, we've never in this committee granted over the 17.3 or 17.4% coverage, if you want. Okay, and that's a concern that I have in that regard. If they're using the shore road allowance and enjoying it, then it would be my suggestion that they should proceed to close the shore road allowance, and then they don't need this application. But if we granted this application in any greater variance or lesser variance than what they've asked for, then that percentage will apply to the whole of their situation if and when they close the shore road allowance.
Yep.
So then they could get even a bigger coverage later on that would be not in conformity with the bylaw. So the question that I have in my mind is that maybe a premature application here. Well, no, not necessarily premature. If they would close the shore road allowance, they don't need it.
That's
This
correct.
application.
That's my understanding also. Yep. Jerry?
So I just want to clarify that if, on the comments, if they close the shore road allowance, they don't need the minor variance. Is that correct?
Yeah, and through you, Chair, we did the best measurements we could. Using our GIS, the calculations we did, it looked like it did roughly comply around, it was pretty much around exactly 15%. So it's hard to say whether it was slightly more or slightly less. And if I may, Chair, just speaking to Mr. Bishop's concerns, we did try and include some conditions, and I'm not sure if they satisfy the committee's concerns. One being that the owner within 6 months is to make application to purchase their shore road allowance. And the other one we had trouble wording, but it notes that the lot coverage variance is for the existing and proposed development only. As per property sketch A and B dated July 22nd. Any future development must comply with the 15% lot coverage permitted within the zoning bylaw. So I don't know if that satisfies the committee. We did have some difficulty coming up with the wording, but we wanted to, as you noted, recognize that if they purchase the short road allowance, it doesn't allow them to add more development.
But Jerry?
So with those conditions, I think I can definitely agree with number 5 that if they did go ahead with this variance, it is only applying to the existing development. And if that is the case, I do not see the need for number 4. That the owner make application for a purchase. I don't believe it's our purpose to force people to be purchasing that short road allowance. I don't know, it's not a policy. It's not a law within their bylaw within the municipality, to my knowledge. That's basically an option for the owner, is that correct?
I do believe that is correct. Jeff would know better than I within the municipality, but in my experience in the past, there's not an obligation whatsoever. The fact of the matter is they are using it right now as if they did own it. I don't see where under the provisions of the Municipal Act where they have the opportunity of claiming that they have been dispossessed at the rear and therefore have a claim of ownership on the front. That even, then you still have to deal with the M&R. The only concern that I would have in regard to a recommendation is, again, the increase of the coverage to the 18+% over what's been our general standard of increasing lot area coverage. It seems a little odd that we can't include the shore road allowance, but we can't include the shore road allowance.
If you don't own it, you can't include it. That's the bottom line. And we have had other recent applications where we've declined requests for lot coverage. Even a recent one Jeff and I were discussing this morning was just over 17.
Yeah.
And that owner ended up not building a lean-to, if I recall, a technical term for it, that was about 900 square feet. And as a result was able to comply with the 15.0. To me, 18.4 versus 15.0 is a pretty substantial variance. It's about 23% beyond what's allowed. And, the zoning bylaw has that 15% in place, with an objective of protecting the natural environment and making sure that we don't have our properties appear overdeveloped. If everyone went from 15.0 to 18.4, we would be, quite a different appearing community, on the lakes in particular. I personally had some reservations about this and really thought that the appropriate action for the owner to take, if Jeff's calculations are approximate, that they go ahead and make an application to council to purchase that shore road allowance. And if council approves it, their problem will be largely solved. And if they then do the calculation supported by an Ontario land surveyor and find out it's 15.1 or something like that, they can come back to the committee and say, we need a variance to 15.1, but it wouldn't be to 18.4 or anything else in that range. And, to me, that seems like a very reasonable course of action for a property owner to take. And it allows the committee to protect, its past precedences of saying, no, 18.4 is beyond minor. And we're not prepared to approve a development of that extent. Jerry?
Is the owner aware of the condition that they are to purchase the road allowance?
And that's a good question. The agenda's been posted. I would have to talk to Danielle, who's been the one.
So maybe the answer
discussion.
here is to defer this file and find out you know, what the intention, if it seems to me if the owners are going to be forced to do the application as a condition, that's going to satisfy, they don't need a minor variance.
Yeah.
So I think they should have that option. Like it was mentioned earlier, if they're going to go ahead and purchase it, they may want to reduce that lot coverage or may not need it.
Yep.
Mhm.
And if we make a decision, their application is done.
Well, if we deferred it, that would at least keep it open. And if they needed to come back at some point in the future looking for 15.1 or something like that, they'd still have an open application, wouldn't need to, go through the process. We as a condition, we could say you need to apply to purchase the shore road allowance, but we can't go any further than that because council could say, no, in this case, we don't want to sell a shore road allowance for whatever reason.
I especially in view of the fact that the applicants are not attending here at the meeting right now and hearing our discussion of this. I support what Mr. Walker has said in regard to the deferral of it and let the applicants know what our concerns are. And maybe they can address it that way. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention, staff was texting me, so she did notify the applicant that they could purchase their shore road allowance and of the conditions. So
Mhm.
if that changes your mind with regards to deferral, I don't know, but the applicant is aware that they were going to be required to purchase the shore road allowance as per the recommended condition.
Okay. Well, does it make sense? To me, the deferral makes sense because it does keep it open and it allows, as you said, if they've got a plan here for a 1,392 square foot structure, if I recall the precise number. If they found out once they get the surveys done and go through the shore road purchase that, oh, we're at 15.1. If we've deferred it, they could come back here then and say we need 15.1. That's truly a minor request, and the committee could evaluate and likely approve that at that time. If we simply just deny it today, then that door would only be reopened through another application to the committee and the payment of the related fees. So this, to me, is the fair approach, would be most considerate to simply defer it.
Make a motion, Jerry?
I'll make a motion that we defer this file.
Actually, excuse me, Chair, before we
Sorry.
proceed, I do have some public comments on this file.
Okay.
So we did receive 3 public comments. The first letter was received on July 11th from Barbara Joanne Barclay Jacqueline, who is the adjacent neighbor, and they don't have any, or they agree with the variance being applied for. A letter was received from Jacqueline McMichael and Tom Rennick, who are also adjacent neighbors. They support granting the requested variance. And lastly, there was a letter received from Michael Baker, who is the previous owner. And what Mr. Baker provided was information about the history of the boathouse being built in the 1950s to house a cedar strip boat. So
Okay.
we did check impact records and it does note that it was first assessed in 1953. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. And it's always helpful to get public input. That I often look to council for precedents, and we recently had a file with considerable public input, and council decided to go a different direction anyway. So, but we appreciate the public input. Thanks, Jeff.
The other thing that is kind of would be applicable to this is when they did a survey of the shore road allowance closure, we would get accurate drawings of where the high water mark is and the distances then
Yep.
from the building proposed.
Yeah, if the application needed to come back here, there would be more precision, if you like, in terms of some of those distances. Yep. Great. So we had a motion to defer that by Jerry, seconded by David. All those in favor? Great. Carried. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. So if you give me one moment, I'm going to bring forward the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Brown.
All right. So the next item is application number 2, Lands of Brown. And this is the applicant that's looking to build a shed, replacing a pump house about 23 feet from the shoreline as opposed to 66 feet.
Excuse me, Rod, if you can hear me, we're trying to promote you to a panelist, so there should be a prompt on your screen that you need to accept. Can you hear us, Rod?
Yes.
Okay. We still don't have the video, so we're taking his word that he looks like Rock Hudson. Is that what I understand? Well, welcome, Mr. Brown, and thank you for joining us this morning. The committee members have your file. I've had a chance to review the reports, but maybe to kind of kick off the discussion and give you a few minutes to outline your perspective of the background and your related request.
So yeah, just the request is we currently have a pump house now, 4 feet by 4 feet, but it's very low and it's very hard to crawl into the pump house to service the pump. So our hope is to build a larger pump house, 10 feet by 10 feet, and then also have a little bit of storage so we can store stuff from the deck instead of carrying it all the way up to the cottage. The location is the only flat spot on the property. It's an incline from the water's edge up to that area. And then from there, it's an incline back up to the cottage, which is quite rocky. We looked at the 66-foot area, but it's not buildable. It would be too much of a challenge to ever try to put something in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments or background?
No. We've owned the cottage for 8 years. It was built in the 50s, and it's just as it was in the 50s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? I would note that the municipality has been pretty rigid in terms of enforcing not compromising, if you like, regarding water setback.
Right.
And I'm not sure if there are any questions, Jerry, David, with regard to the application.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. The big concern we've got here is, again, an improvement building being located within the 66-foot shoreline setback. And this particular building that's proposed is going to be even closer than the existing pump house. And it's going to have a visual impact, even though there is tree cover there. But it is a structure, 10 by 10, including storage, as well as the pump facility. I just don't see how we can overcome the word strictly adhered to. And we've dealt with these kind of situations in the past and followed the provisions of the policy of maintaining no structures within that particular water setback. I appreciate that the pump house is difficult to work into. I don't know if you can change his pump situation to another closer up to the cottage or not. What the lift is. Shallow well pumps will do over 30 feet. I would defer to Jerry Walker in regard to that. But so I just don't see where we have the opportunity of overriding the word strictly here.
I understand. Jeff, did you have any comments that you wanted to make with regard to this beyond what's in your report?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing more that's in the report. In terms of circulation requirements, there's been no oral or written comments received. And if the Chair would like me to go through the conditions, I can. That would be subject to approval.
All right. Well, let's see if we get There others may be the same sentiment as David, and conditions become irrelevant if that's the case. Jerry?
I'd have to agree with Mr. Bishop. We've had similar applications over our last term on this committee. We've even had, I do believe we did have one case where we actually had them remove their pump house. So I have an issue with the 10 by 10 replacing it. I would maybe suggest that he could somehow make that 4 by 4 if he's going to leave it. Try and have a removable roof or something to work on it, but I cannot agree with the new 10 by 10 structure within the setback.
Okay, thank you. And I would have to say exactly the same thing, that the committee and council, for that matter, it says strictly adhere. The reality is there's lots of people on waterfronts that would like to have 10 by 10 sheds or something structure that size right down by the shore for storage purposes and convenience and ease of access and all the rest of the stuff. But the council in its wisdom said, we want you to strictly adhere to this. And we as a committee have been consistent in that respect. I'm not sure that we could even justify that this application meets the 4 conditions, or it would be a minor variance to those. It's I just don't see it. I don't hear any support for proceeding with this. I did make some inquiries with staff as a result of seeing the report and noting there'd been a 4 by 4 pump house there. And I'm told that, in the absence of serious complaints, they'll let those things go. There's some sometimes older technology today. There's technology alternatives that, you generally don't require an actual pump house that can put a pump in the lake and get things pumped up that way, eliminating the pump house. But, we're not here to evaluate the 4 by 4, the existing pump house. We're here to deal with an application for 10 by 10. And as I've heard it, the direction of the committee is to deny the request. Okay, thank you, David. So I've got moved by David and seconded by Jerry. Be it resolved that the committee decision with respect to file D13 MV 2022-019 be recorded as follows. A decrease to the provisions of section 5.2 to permit a shed pump house to have a minimum water setback of 7.3 meters or 23 feet as opposed to the required 20 meters, 66 feet is denied. Just before we vote on that, I don't know if there's any further comment you wanted to make, Mr. Brown, other than disappointment.
Yeah, I'm truly disappointed, and I've looked at what our neighbors have, and we're in our little bay. There's 5 cottages that have boathouses right on the water's edge. So as far as compromising the appearance of the bay, I don't think adding a little shed would do that. Around the corner from us, they've built a cottage on what you call the footprint of the original building, which is twice the size. They've added rocks to the shoreline and they've added fill on every square foot of that property. So for your decision to decline this, it's hard to take. When I look at what other people have done, friends of ours down the lake, they built a cottage 3 years ago and they're not even 30 feet from the water's edge, and they too have added rocks to increase their shoreline. So I'm truly disappointed that we are denied. We went through the proper process to respect your committee. We paid the $900 fee, and I think it's unfair that we've been denied. I'm not sure what I should say or what I can say at this point in time. You've obviously made up your mind, and it's discouraging. We are respectful. We followed the procedures, and I feel that we've been penalized by doing that. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to enter into debate. I can't comment on other properties on your lake. There are situations, I know that we just had an application, when there was a boathouse on a property that had been in existence since the 1950s. Those have been grandfathered, and and also if people are rebuilding, again on that old footprint, they can build, in the same footprint. If they want to do a rebuild, can't make it larger unless they go further back. But if you have specific concerns, there is a process to file a complaint with respect to any property, and there also is a process if you so wish to appeal a decision from the committee. But we have a motion moved by David, seconded by Jerry, and I don't need to read it again. All those in favor? Okay, Carrie, thank you very much.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
You had mentioned about rebuilding on the footprint of the original pump house. I could go a little bit further back.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't referring to your pump house situation rebuilding. I was talking, you were complaining about your neighbors having rebuilt a cottage. And I was saying how those, the zoning bylaw provides for rebuilding. Jeff may had a comment here with regard to your existing pump house. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. Through your chair, internally staff have kind of, I guess, interpreted the bylaw with some flexibility in terms of pump boxes. So if you needed to rebuild that pump box, we interpret that complies with the bylaw. If you were to rebuild that at a full height, at the size of a structure, then it would become a structure. So we do allow pump boxes, but not full size sheds of any size.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Brown?
That's it.
Thank you very much for being in attendance this morning.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna one more file.
We have one more application here. This is item number 3, the Lands of Shields.
And I'm gonna bring forward Emily Thayer, who is the agent from Repoy's planning office.
Yeah. This is the application for a building height relief related to a belvedere. And I will confess to having to look up what the definition of belvedere was when I read this report. Jerry and his business might have been familiar with it, but it was new to me.
It's not a cupola.
Okay.
We did. It's as Dave said, it was for a cupola or cupula.
Cupola.
Yeah.
All right.
It was. Sorry.
Yep.
Before you do, that was a matter of a circulation of air conditioning.
Perfect. Well, good morning. Is there anyone there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Chair and Committee. I haven't actually participated in a DISART et al. Committee of Adjustment yet, so bear with me here.
Well, welcome, and we'll try and be gentle and accommodating with you as a result of your lack of experience with us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Emily Thaler, Marie Poirier Planning and Associates, 44A King William Street, Huntsville, Ontario, P1L or P1H 1G3. We represent the owners of the subject property, Mark and Kristen Shields. First, I'd like to just thank staff for the report and fully, obviously, concur with their recommendation to approve the application. I'll try to summarize it here fairly quickly. The proposal itself is to construct an architectural feature known as a belvedere to provide additional natural light to a portion of the new dwelling, which is currently under construction at 1021 Canyon Road. The proposed belvedere would have a footprint of just 16 square meters and would be constructed on top of and near the rear of the dwelling. The maximum height of a dwelling, as per the DISART et al. Zoning bylaw, is 9.5 meters, but the proposed belvedere would result in overall measured height of 10.73 meters, and that's the variance before you today. The proposed belvedere would not contain any floor area, and would be open to the interior of the dwelling below, and so would not contribute additional habitable space to the dwelling. The dwelling itself meets the minimum required 20-meter setback from the shoreline of Halliburton Lake. Was previously issued a building permit without the Belvedere in place. Location of the Belvedere itself is almost 16.5 meters farther from the lake, so resulting in a setback of 34 meters at minimum, which would kind of limit any visual impact of construction for the architectural feature itself. The remainder of the dwelling outside of the proposed Belvedere would have a maximum height of 8.8 meters, which is actually less than the maximum permitted height of the dwelling in the bylaw. As such, so the overall visual face print of the dwelling would not be oversized or disproportionate to the surrounding lands. Most importantly, I think the request for the variance in height will be limited to the Belvedere itself. It would not apply to any further development on the lands or any kind of set any kind of precedent regarding the dwelling itself and the habitable space therein. The proposed Belvedere would not otherwise impact lot coverage. It's being constructed on top of the structure. It wouldn't infringe on any other setbacks or any setbacks, and in our opinion meets those 4 tests of the minor variance, including the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, minor in nature, and desirable for the land and the architecture. We kindly request that you consider the application as per staff's report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to add before the committee members a chance to ask questions? The applicant?
I did have one thing I would like to add, and I do have a question, Emily. So I looked at the building permit drawings this morning, and it showed a mezzanine around that the Belvedere. Is there going to be a mezzanine up there, or any walkable space that someone could be up there and look at those windows?
That's not my interpretation of what we have. I don't have the actual building drawings that were submitted. The application kind of came to us after that fact. It's not my understanding, but it wouldn't be. Do you mean, was there a mezzanine noted on the interior of the design?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but not to my knowledge. Whether that would affect the application, I'm not sure. It would certainly not be enclosed habitable space by any means. In my opinion, I think that would be kind of a building department question, whether that would even be permitted for building standard. But I don't think the owners are in attendance, so I can't actually ask them at this time.
Okay.
Yep. I just wanted to bring that up because I did see that in the drawing this morning.
All right.
So it's up to the committee how they choose to proceed.
Thank you for getting that clarification. David?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just a couple of questions, if I may. In the drawings that we have, it indicates that the property goes right down to the shoreline of Halliburton Lake. So is the shoreline closed in this particular situation? Do they own that?
Through you, Chair, the road lines is not yet closed, but an application has been submitted and the survey's been completed.
And what is the status of that application at this point in time? Has it been surveyed and?
It's been
has it gone
surveyed.
to council?
If I may, through you, Chair, the bylaw has been passed, so it has been sent to the municipal solicitor to do the conveyance.
So then the next question I have is, when I see the drawing of the outline of the building on the property and the indication of where the tree cover is. And was the Belvedere part of the original drawings, or is this something that's come up afterwards?
Through you, Chair, it's my understanding that the Belvedere was added after so a building permit was submitted and granted for the dwelling itself. And I believe the Belvedere was added as an additional idea and feature afterwards. And that's why the application is before you today, but the building is actually under construction because the remainder of it was granted a permit.
Okay, so just so I understand that the original application for building permit was for a building without the addition of this Belvedere.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's my understanding. I don't have the building permit submission right in front of me, but that's my understanding.
So is this building completed now? Is the Belvedere in existence?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's not my understanding. My understanding is the structure is just under construction, and whether or not I don't think that they're making any plans to start constructing the Belvedere until approval would be granted. But I haven't seen the site recently.
Okay.
The question I have, is the Belvedere addition to the original plan, is it necessary for the normal use and enjoyment of this building? Or is it just a desire or a nice touch, i.e., is the building enjoyable and usable without this Belvedere?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's an architectural feature, so the answer to that question would probably be yes.
So nothing is preventing into the bylaws and the height bylaw, the use of the building and enjoyment of the building without the Belvedere.
Sorry, I think I didn't understand, hear a question in there, but I think I understand what you're trying to say.
What is it in the zoning restriction that is saying that without a Belvedere, this place cannot be normally used for use as a seasonal or residential dwelling unit? What is it that destroys its use by virtue of not having the ability to put on a Belvedere that increases the height over the allowable? That's what I need to know.
All right. Well, I think if I interpreted her response correct, and Emily, you could provide clarity. I think her response was there's nothing essential about this. It's a nice to have.
Thank you.
Is that correct, Emily?
Through Mr. Chair, that's correct. It's an architectural feature, and because of certain architectural features are permitted through the bylaw.
Yeah.
Belvederes aren't in the list, and that's sort of our request today.
Yeah. Thank you. Jerry, did you have any questions?
Yes, I don't have an issue with the height. I'm just looking at the size of this unit and how is there going to be access to get up there to look out this Belvedere? You're talking 172 square feet, which is that's a substantial size. It's almost a room size, like a bedroom almost.
Yep.
The height doesn't, I don't have an issue with the height. I have more of an issue with it turning into a bedroom at some point or some other use. So is this actually accessible? Is there a walkway? Is there a floor in it? It just kind of
my interpretation from the description provided to us is there is no living area here. There is no floor. This is to allow natural light in. Is that correct, Emily?
Through Mr. Chair, that's correct. Yeah. There will not be habitable space up there.
And so, if the committee was inclined to approve it, to put conditions in terms of no stairwell, no mezzanine and so forth, those would meet your requirements. Is that correct, Emily?
That's correct. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Jeff?
Since you mentioned conditions, perhaps this would be a good time to read out the proposed conditions.
Okay. I don't know if there's any inclination to providing, approval with conditions of this. Is the committee interested in hearing about proposed conditions?
Yes, that my only concern, as I mentioned, I'm not concerned about height. It seems minor in a height application. It's as long as there seems to be a condition there to prevent it becoming a habitable space.
Okay. All right.
I don't have a problem.
the conditions, thank you, Mr. Chair, in regard to conditions, they are important in regard to what allowances might be granted by this committee. There are other comments that I have in regard to this application. And they relate partly to the report of the planner and to the concepts of what we're trying to preserve within our official plan, not only the DICART official plan, but provincial policy studies. And so I can make my comments in that regard, if allowed to, Mr. Chair. You know, the water and the lakes are so important to the preservation of the natural environment of this community. And that is touched on by the report. But this location, you know, we have water setbacks for a reason, but we also have water setbacks and water. What we're trying to preserve is not only the land side of it, but what does it look like from the lake?
Mhm.
This is a substantial structure and it's on a lot that rises fairly good from the water. And increasing the height makes that going to stand out. You're going to see that Belvedere from the lake. There is no doubt about it.
Mhm.
And it's going to be oh, look, there's the Belvedere. But if all the buildings were allowed on the lake was allowed such an increase, in that case, the concept of natural heritage, water, and rural, as set forth in the provincial policy statement, are defeated. To say that this residence with the Belvedere maintains modest height requested and that is consistent with the character of the rural area and surrounding properties, that's not necessarily correct. What would happen if every one of those people had the same height increase? The DICART official plan is to protect the natural characteristics and the visual aesthetics of the shoreline, and wherever possible, improve and restore the natural state of not just shorelines, but also shoreland. The report submitted says that it's not anticipated that the height increase to accommodate the Belvedere will impact or offend the policy. They don't see it will not. And anticipation is like hope. Hope is as yet unrealized disappointment. So I have some concerns here. Nothing in the report says that this structure can't function as a recreational residence without the Belvedere. And it was not even part of the original design. It's an afterthought, an architectural feature. Well, for the benefit of whom?
Mhm.
Those are my comments in that regard, Mr. Chair. Now, if there are conditions that can satisfy that concern, maybe we can look at them.
Okay. So Jeff, why don't you mention the conditions? I heard Jerry speak to concerns about the size of the Belvedere, you know, 172 square feet. If you put that into basically a square room, it's just over 13 feet by 13 feet. So that's larger than any bedroom that I had as a kid, I'll tell you that. You know, but the objective, based on my understanding of the request in the report here, was to let in some natural light. And there are obviously different ways of doing that with window frontages and even skylights and so forth. But somebody come up here with the design feature of Belvedere that's you know, pretty large. But Jeff, what do you have in terms of conditions here?
And first off, I'll thank you, and through you, Chair. First off, I'll note that no oral or written comments have been received on this file. I'm going to skip the first three conditions. They're pretty standard conditions, basically that the variance applies to the structure shown on the site plan, adherence to the tree preservation bylaw, as well as sediment fencing installed during down gradient during construction. Moving on to the fourth condition, we're recommending that the applicant implement and maintain a 3-meter vegetation buffer along the side lot lines, just to help with privacy or potential privacy. And the last one was that the proposed Belvedere shall not have any floor area or space used for habitation. And just based on my comments at the beginning, that the building design drawings and the building permit show a mezzanine, perhaps it might be beneficial to say that it shall not have any floor area mezzanine or space used for habitation, just to address privacy concerns of Mr. Walker. So that's the proposed conditions to date. If Mr. Walker is concerned about size, we can put in a condition limiting it to the size as recommended on the site plan. And I'm happy to discuss any other conditions that the committee might want included.
Okay. From an exterior point of view, as visibility is a legitimate concern, as David has mentioned, both with regard to the height and the size of the height. The other thing that many are concerned about, and certainly council with, again, the zoning bylaw speaks to certain restrictions around lighting. And so, Emily, do you know about any plans for lighting? The report speaks to the letting in of natural light as the purpose of the Belvedere. But if there's, after dark, there's any lighting inside the building, is that going to be visible, through the Belvedere to anyone that's in the area?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have access to lighting plans, but if that's something that you wish to kind of try to envelop in the conditions regarding dark sky lighting or anything like that, then we'd certainly be amenable to that. But I don't have any information regarding how they're actually planning to wire the Belvedere.
Okay, thank you. So, what are the thoughts of the committee? With respect to this, there's a request for a Belvedere to be 35.2 feet high, 10.7 meters, I think is Emily's conversion, compared to 31 feet as the permitted, or 9.5 meters. Jerry?
I do like your comment, Mr. Chair, about the lighting being what would you say, lit away from the building. Like it says this is for light for internal use,
yeah.
But the part that could actually have a big, strobe light, or not that it's going to be a strobe, but a chandelier or some sort of lighting that is very obtrusive to the lake or the neighbors.
Yeah.
So if there was a way to put a condition in there that there be no lighting in that Belvedere, to be lit up.
Yeah.
That way there could be no exterior exclusion or whatever the word is.
Yeah. Well, it's naturally light wood if the room inside below the Belvedere is well lit at night. Light will go up and project out of whatever the Belvedere's top is made of, glass or acrylic or whatever. There would need to be some type of covering that the owner could put over to prevent that from emanating up. That, of course, unless you can figure out a one-way technology, it's going to eliminate the, one of the attractions of Belvedere obviously would be to be able to look up and see the night sky. But you don't want the neighbors looking over and saying, oh, there's not a spotlight, but there's a beam of light emanating out of that roof over there that's already higher than it's supposed to be under the zoning bylaw. And and then obviously if there's any exterior lighting on the Belvedere, that would just make it worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if there was a way to put that into the condition about any added lighting to the Belvedere or to the surrounding area from the Belvedere, that it will not happen. I don't know how you would word that.
And if I may, Chair, we could include a condition that says the Belvedere can't contain any lighting.
Yeah.
When you look at the bylaw, it talks about light trespass. So everybody's going to have lights on their property that if you look across the lake, you're going to see lights.
Yeah.
But we could say no lighting within the Belvedere so that it's not trespassing on neighboring properties, on the lake.
Yeah, we're always going to see lighting. I'm looking across the lake. And today, somebody who's got a building that's 31 feet high, in fact, can have lighting on that building. It's supposed to be down lighting and so forth, but they can have lighting that's 31 feet off the ground. If you let somebody have a building that's 35 feet off the ground, well, now the lighting is in fact, higher than would otherwise be available. That was my concern about lighting, is you're getting it up further into the sky. Yeah, like you don't need to go far in any community these days, particularly with solar lights. Walk down to a dock and look across the lake and you see a ton of lights. But fortunately, they're down at ground level, most of them. All right. So, Jerry?
So I would be prepared to make a motion to support this application with the condition, with an added condition or enhanced condition regarding the lighting and the floor area, the habitation access. No stairs, no way that it could be converted to a habitable space.
Yeah.
With the history, we did have another application at some time that this similar application was used for heating passive cooling. And it was the same principle. It was a different name, but it was the same principle. And we did approve that as for passive cooling.
Yeah.
So in that regard, that's my reasoning for supporting it. With that condition, no exterior lighting beyond the proposed zoning height. So like you say, we can't go up there and put a dusted on or something out there that's going to be that you normally wouldn't have.
Now, is that precedent you referred to, was it as large as this, another 13 feet by 13 feet?
I can't remember.
It was, as I recall, it was for the purpose of providing ventilation or cooling. And that is something that is allowed as an exception under the bylaw in terms of the height requirement. Whereas this is not quite the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a great deal of discussion about it at the time as well as to what the visual effects of it were going to be. But it fell under basically the exemption for cooling. And that was out in Kinesis Lake.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the 13 by 13, the size here is a consideration in my mind also. If I think of other structures where you see something on a rooftop, forgotten the technical name for them, but they're often smaller than this. The size here is large by any definition. David, what were your? Right, Jerry.
Maybe we could ask Emily. Is there any, would the applicant be open to a suggestion of a smaller structure? Any discussion on that from your side?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We haven't had any discussions about the possibility of reducing the size of the structure. Obviously, that's certainly something we can discuss if chair and committee aren't amenable to the application today, but that's not something that I think they've considered. If that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. David?
Well, the concern I have, Mr. Chair, is that it appears that it's an afterthought, it's not part of the original application for building permit. And that it, without it, doesn't deny the normal use of the property and the building as a residential, seasonal, or permanent. And it is a desire to add it on as an architectural feature. I don't see why there is hardship in maintaining the bylaw and the height requirement. It appears to me that this might have been a building that was architecturally designed in the beginning. And someone's come along later on and said, this might be a desirable thing to have. But desire is not something that we're required to implement necessarily under the application of the Committee of Adjustment test. So I'm really not in favor, Mr. Chair, of this proceeding. I appreciate all the conditions that have been reviewed here and suggested by Mr. Lyle, but they still don't overcome the fact in my mind that it's not necessary for the enjoyment of the building. And also I'm major concerned about the visual impact from the lake.
Okay. So we've got one member that sort of with some further restrictions would be amenable to the request, and one who is opposed, generally speaking, and then it would then fall to the chair as to his perspective. And I'd have to say that I've got considerable concerns given the size of the structure. The concept of an, I'll call it an ornamental and accessory feature that is as large as I say, 13 feet by 13 feet. It may be, rectangular shape, but it looked in the diagram to me to be approximately square. That's pretty large. And that large size obviously is going to make it more visible, from wherever, whether you're a neighbor or you're looking at it from the lake. So a smaller size, would be more likely to draw my support when you combine that with the restrictions around lighting and so forth. And if it turns out that it's 6 by 6 as an example, it gives the visibility to night light. It provides plenty of natural light able to enter through whatever finishes on it, and keeps it to a more modest size. And certainly nobody's going to be up there. You're not going to build a 6-set of staircase and create something going to a small space like you could with something as large as a full room size. Gary?
So would it be favorable to ask our applicant, the agent for the applicant, if they would like to look at redesigning, maybe to defer the file and see if they could come back with a more approachable design that may be favorable, or do we just turn it down?
Through you, Mr.
Well,
Chair.
I'd have
Oh,
no
sorry.
concern about coming back. Emily, what would be your thoughts? Would you like to go away and consult with your client and the architect and say, okay, what could we come up with that's modest in size, that is truly an ornamental feature as opposed to a huge structure feature?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, that would absolutely be our preference. We would absolutely take into consideration your comments today and look at reducing the size and or the height, and seeing if we can come up with some sort of compromise.
Okay. And just one thing on that, based on some of the discussion, it's kind of a view that some of these heights are, I'll call them rough estimates, and maybe in your next report there could be the precision of an architect's statement, because I think Jeff said he looked at the building permits and it didn't actually specify height. So if you were to do that, that would probably give some additional comfort to the committee members.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Jeff, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to note, with construction season running out quickly, there is no meeting in November. So if it is deferred, it will not come back till December. Just due to elections, there won't be a meeting in November.
Okay. Emily, is that the pictures that were in the report looked like they had 6 or 8 inches of snow on them, but it was still in the relatively early stages of construction. I don't know what's happened, since that snow melted last March or April.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure exactly what the construction stage is. Obviously, it wouldn't be fantastic to have to hold off past November for the roof structure. But if committee and the chair are, looking at a denial, we would certainly request a deferral on this to redesign.
Okay. Okay.
Move that we defer this file.
Okay, David, second that. You've got the resolution there, Jeff? Thank you. So, moved by Jerry, seconded by David. Be it resolved that the committee decision with respect to file D13 MV 2022-021 be recorded as follows. A variance to section 5.5 to permit dwelling to have a maximum structure height of 10.73 meters, 35.2 feet, as opposed to the required 9.5 meters, 31.2 feet, is deferred. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and Committee.
Thank you, Emily. Okay. I'll deal with that paperwork in a moment, but those are the three applications we had for today. So the last item on the agenda is motion to adjourn. So moved by Jerry. All right, David.
Motion for adjournment needs no second.
All right.
Well, anyway.
No meeting in November.
No, there's not going to be a meeting in November, and depending on what happens with the election, we'll let you know about December too. There will be a meeting. I don't know. how
They might
they're
defer it and we'll be fired.
So the meeting's adjourned. All right. I'll turn off the microphone. So you're saying